Hello and welcome to the Bitcoin Business Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Karpeles. This podcast is put on by Sovereign, the company on my shirt, the company I am the CEO of. And we spend a lot of time on this podcast talking to business owners about selling their products for Bitcoin, incorporating Bitcoin into their business. And we have a unique guest today, something that was near and dear to my heart growing up, which was trading cards. I would say I spent an inordinate amount of my childhood trading baseball cards mainly, but dabbled in football, hockey, basketball as well. It was a big hobby of mine. It was pre-internet days, and I would memorize all the stats on there. You can go to like Fangraphs and other websites now and get all that information. But back in the day, there was no easy thing to source, so you kind of just had to memorize it and know who was batting at 248 in the eighth spot for the Cincinnati Reds. And that was the year before, of course. It wasn't up to date. So, or you could look at the box scores in the newspapers. But with me today is Alladan from Bitcoin Trading Cards, and I'm curious to hear his story, and we'll get into all of that and if it mirrors mine. But for the record, I want to say this is probably the first podcast where we've done where the product being sold isn't necessarily a consumer good or even a durable good, but something that's more of a collectible, and you will be trading your sats for it, which is something I want to discuss with you as well. That how in good conscience could a good Bitcoiner part with their sats for something that's not as scarce, not as verifiable, but we'll get into all that stuff. So without further ado, welcome Aladdin. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Brandon. Looking forward to this.
Awesome. So why don't we start with I'm guessing the sort of trading card curiosity and enjoying the trading card world came before your Bitcoin journey. So why don't we start with your trading card story? Was it similar to mine? Were you a young, impressionable Ute that got into cards like the rest of your friends? How did this all start?
Yeah, I could age myself as well, long before the internet. Growing up, I definitely loved trading cards. Sports cards were something that I grew up in a very low income situation. So if I was able to get some cards, I was lucky. Where I grew up was actually out in the middle of nowhere, BFE. So even getting into town to get a pack of trading cards, you were really lucky to have that happen. A lot of it, I remember, it was the fourth grade. I had a buddy of mine, and his dad was one of those sports card collectors where once in a great while he'd let you into his room and he'd pull these big treasure troves out from under his bed. And I mean, it was just absolutely remarkable in every way, especially being in the fourth grade and seeing all this. That's definitely where I got my first really big energetic drive towards trading cards. Sports cards, I played a lot of sports, so I did enjoy those. But honestly, it was when I went to an apartment complex. My dad used to do maintenance at a bunch of apartments. And there was one guy that was super cool, and he'd let me come and hang out with him while my dad would do the maintenance around. And he was a Marvel comic trading card collector. That's when it really fired up because I've been an artist my entire life, and those Marvel comic cards were just something else. To be able to collect your favorite characters is one thing to read a comic book, but to literally hold the card of your favorite character and collect multiple versions of it, that's where I got the most fired up into trading cards.
I remember those Marvel trading cards. I also had a bunch of GI Joe cards as well. I was big into the GI Joe. I was perfect state propaganda. Where a good GI Joe, an all American hero, fighting the bad guys, and all that. But I never really. Those were cool and they were collectible. But it was like these are made up characters I that were kind of just action figures, a little different than Marvel, which had a much bigger brand. And by the way, X-Men was my favorite video game, playing out the actual in arcade version where you had to get a cup full of nickels to beat the game. But well, I'm sure we could nerd out about that forever. So what was it? it was initially the art that drew you to it. By the way, I hated those guys that had those massive card collections because I was like the same as you. I was spending $2.50 for a pack of 92 tops and trying to find a good card in there. And then there were all these guys that seemingly had all these great cards and amassed this collection. And I've got one of every 200 cards of mine was even worth like more than $1 back at the time.
Yes.
And so those guys always drove me nuts. But so once you got into the trading cards and the Marvel, did you start to value it for the ability to swap with other people, to see it as an investment, or was it really just truly about the art and about the characters and that sort of universe? Pardon the pun for you.
For me, it was really just about the art and the characters. I grew up with no TV in the house. Dad's definitely always been incredibly based. So no TV in the house, no propaganda. It was whatever my imagination could kind of run with. So if I saw an X-Men show, which I did love when I was a kid, but it was literally sneaking over to my buddy's house and catching it on his TV. So when I did get to see some of these cartoons and shows, it was amazing because it wasn't something that I had readily available every day in my house. So I would say definitely the story, the lore of the stories and the characters, and then of course being a young boy seeing the Marvel comics, you know that they paid the female characters major justice. So that was one very impressionable as a young man. Those were obviously my favorite cards, Storm and Rogue, and yeah,
Also, also a pre-internet necessity, but that that's something we'll try to avoid as a topic here. So along those lines, getting into cards for me, I mentioned it was kind of an investment, but there was no storyline. It was kind of like, okay, this was this guy's eighth season with the Cardinals, or this guy's fourth season with the LA Kings, or whatever, and there was this value of scarcity added into it, and it was this one's harder to find than that one, and you really came at it more from the art perspective, like you said. So are you, as you get into what you're doing now, and we'll talk about that and get into all of that, did you approach Bitcoin trading cards as more sort of a storytelling art type thing for a collector, as opposed to something that all of us Bitcoiners care about, scarcity, investment value, these sorts of things?
yeah. I mean, that's quite a rabbit hole. So I'll try to sum it up for you the best I can.
We got
When
a decent amount of time here.
when I first started this project, collectability was probably least on my mind. The crazy thing, like how that worked, because they ended up becoming insanely collectible. The whole purpose of why I created Bitcoin trading cards was once I got into Bitcoin, all I wanted to do was talk about it and scream it at the rooftops, like many of us. But it's any Bitcoiner knows it's a very, very difficult conversation to have. So usually striking out with friends and family, and I was trying to think about what can I do to work in Bitcoin for the rest of my life, be a part of this movement that I care greatly about and believe it has more potential than really any other movement, probably since the beginning of time when it comes to bringing true decentralization together for humanity. So uh, I was trying to figure out how do I make Bitcoin simple. I read Bitcoin Standard multiple times, got into many books back 2016, 2017. Not a lot of books back then. When the Bitcoin Standard came out, it was on at that point. So deep diving there and then going, okay, well, I have the time because I'm an entrepreneur to read this book and to listen to it multiple times on audiobook, but getting the everyday person to take the time to do that was, for me at least, nearly impossible. So just looking at social media and seeing, okay, what is working for people? Well, it's a really quick time preference. Like they've got 30 seconds, capture their attention in 30 seconds, and you might have something. Well, you're not going to get that from any of the books we have in the Bitcoin space, unfortunately. So the trading cards were really, it was primarily incentivizing people in the beginning with the art, with the collectability, but I didn't think the value of this was going to be an investment wise in any way. I figured it was the incentive of just some really cool art, an easy way to. We call the first set that we did orange pill in a pack. Literally what it is. You'll rip a pack open, and I took a lot of inspiration from Safedine and the Bitcoin Standard to literally only put like 10-20% of the trading cards about Bitcoin. The other 80 to 90% is why Bitcoin is so important. Is again, if you are talking to someone that's brand new into Bitcoin or knows nothing about Bitcoin and really isn't interested, coming at them with a bunch of technical Bitcoin talk is really just going to run them away. So we have cards in the first set like asset versus liability, decentralization, uh, centralization. We have like tyranny categories that kind of break down uh, little facts about the government and facts about all kinds of tyranny that is pushed upon us and has been forever. So it's really just capturing all the reasons why Bitcoin is so important. And then again, like 10-20% about Bitcoin, like the halving and the artwork in the halving. You can see it behind me. It's a samurai. And then on the back of the card, it's going to give you literally just a one paragraph cliff note about the halving and then some stats like your sports cards when you were growing up. So when was the first halving? How many blocks before, in between each halving? Little things like that to just get them started on their journey. And again, 30 seconds. And hopefully they like the first card enough to read the next one, 30 seconds. And one of the things I love about art, it's a universal language. So it doesn't matter what language you speak, the artwork on the front is going to hopefully inspire you enough to want to dig a little bit deeper. So I think there's a lot of different aspects about the cards and why I started it. But the biggest reason was just simplifying Bitcoin and why Bitcoin is so important as much as I possibly could for people to. Bob Burnett, he's my first advisor and a really good friend of mine, Barefoot Mining, and he was helping me out months before I actually launched. And he said, Aladdin, you just have to find a way to make Bitcoin fun. If you can figure that out, then it's on because we have a lot of amazing things in Bitcoin. But unless you're at a conference, fun is not one of them.
Well, even the conferences become a bit of a chore when you end up in the industry, but that's a different conversation. But it is still fun. So along those lines, okay, you've got this idea. Really, I want to start educating people. How do I do that? I'm going to make some art that's appealing to people. I'm going to hit them with some factoids, some just quick digestible nuggets about Bitcoin, about money, about personal finance, government overreach, libertarian ideals, et cetera, et cetera. How do you start getting this in the hands of people? Because ultimately, selling no one's going to come seek out Bitcoin trading cards. No one that's in the sort of Marvel universe or Magic the Gathering or even sports trading cards, anything like that. They're not looking for a pack of Bitcoin cards. So how do you start getting this out to the masses? Are you going to trade shows? Is it all just internet advertising? What's your sort of go to market get these in the hands of people strategy?
Yeah, so it was really all about building a foundation. Most important thing for me, especially in the beginning, I've been in the Bitcoin space since 2016, and being an entrepreneur and where I was at personally at that time in my life, I was just closing out one business and trying to figure out what I was going to do next. So I had a lot of time. And that time was spent not just studying Bitcoin, but really going down many rabbit holes. Uh, I'd already been red pilled my whole life. So when I had the time to really start diving down these red pill rabbit holes, I went hard. And there was a lot of access before 2020. We had all kinds of access to lots of different rabbit holes out there, and then it started disappearing. But luckily, in between that time, I was able to deep dive. And a lot of it was really trying to bring everything full circle of I need to be able to make my connections and my relationships in the Bitcoin space first because I'm representing Bitcoin. on these trading cards. We are all the marketing team for Bitcoin, every one of us. That's one of the things I love about it, but it's also one of the main difficulties of Bitcoin and why almost everyone that we talk to nowadays is like, oh, well, XRP, XRP, XRP. um, all because of their marketing. And I try to tell them that. They're like, well, it's everywhere. I'm like, well, yeah, because like it's a centralized company and they can literally spend hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, marketing the crap out of it and dropping propaganda all over the place. Where Bitcoin, it's up to us. So it's a huge responsibility. And I took that responsibility very, very serious. I still do, to the point of I'm not going to put anyone in these packs that, one, are not just true blue Bitcoiners or true orange Bitcoiners, however we want to say it. People that have been vetted in the space, I put basically education cards that we highlight different books. I put Bitcoin warriors in there where we highlight different, call them influencers in the space, but I like to call them Bitcoin warriors, people that are out there fighting for our sovereignty the best they can by promoting Bitcoin and trying to get the word out. But the last thing I want to do is put someone in the pack that ends up going rogue and doing some shady stuff in the industry. So studying all of that and understanding it to do the best I could. I mean, everyone's fallible to a certain point, so it's always a risk. But I wanted to make personal relationships with these people to where it wasn't just me watching them on Twitter and hoping that they're good people, but at least trying to have one personal connection with them to see just how real they were. We all know a lot of people can be very egotistical. They can be very stuck up, very all kinds of things that probably don't deserve to be highlighted. But I think I've got a pretty good read on people to know, I mean, to a certain degree, if they're genuine or not. And if they're not genuine, if they come off really cocky and really egotistical, then I probably will not put them in the pack. But if they come off genuine, then I want to highlight them and I want to get to know them a little bit. So I got to know some of the biggest people that I've been watching for many, many years in the space. And I make sure if I put them in the pack that I've got their blessing. They like the artwork, they like the description, everything we're doing. So that was a really big process in the beginning of go to market. Build the pillars, build the foundation, and make sure that if you're representing Bitcoin in a way that we're trying to do, as big as we're trying to go with this, we got to do it the right way and build it from the ground up. So that at least
Yeah.
gives you an idea of where my foundational start was on this, and then I can kind of go into more details if you want about where we're going. But
No, I appreciate that. And listen, no Bitcoiner agrees on everything. So there's going to be people that say things that you even disagree with, but really is their heart in the right place? Are they trying to do the right thing? Are they not trying to hustle people? And to your point, some people will go off the rails and get Bitcoin derangement syndrome and rage quit and all that stuff. That happens. Only so much you can do about that. But so when did I saw your first pack? I think came out in 2022. Is that right? So is when did you get fully orange pilled?
2016, right out the gate. I heard about Bitcoin in 2012, but the person that talked to me about it, they knew nothing about Bitcoin, and it just came off the way that they were talking about it. It was magic internet money, like most people think originally. And he didn't come at me with any of the freedom angles, decentralization, anything. So in 2016, my chiropractor started talking about it. Yeah, I think I've heard about that. And then I had a friend of mine I've known throughout my whole life. And then he started talking about it. So I said, all right, it's time for me to kind of look into this a little bit more. And I found Tone Vase was one of the first ones, Samson Mao, and they were speaking my language. And I would say the moment they started mentioning any of the fundamentals, finite supply, decentralized, it's not controlled by a government or a country or a company, it was on at that point. And then all I wanted to do was verify that. As soon as I could actually verify that in my own mind that what these guys are saying is true, then it was 100%. I couldn't think about anything else because I always wanted to work in an industry that could make a positive impact. I grew up in the cannabis industry, and this is where a lot of my red pill came from because just seeing how hardcore the government was against cannabis. And then, if anyone's ever read The Emperor Wears No Clothes, they understand. If you haven't read that, I highly recommend you read it. So I was red pill very, very early on, seeing people thrown in prison for a joint, seeing people thrown in prison for growing a plant in their backyard that was literally being used to, uh, the proper way of saying it, at least help people in very, very bad medical situations. And it was illegal. And the further you go down that rabbit hole, the more you go, okay, there's corruption is insane. So yeah, with all of that being said, my youth growing up the way that I did, once I found Bitcoin and understood those fundamentals, there was no turning back. And this was where I wanted to work for the rest of my life.
Yeah, the war on drugs wasn't about stopping people from using drugs, but about stopping competition. So that's a whole other story. So it took seems like it took a while for you to get into Bitcoin, get into working in the bit. I don't want to say a while, but it's 6 years in the grand scheme of things. It's a blip on the radar. But when did you start formulating the idea for this company, start putting things together, and deciding you were going to go to market?
2018, actually. So 2 years in, I did a small trading card project back in 2016, 2017. So I already had a little bit of knowledge in the space and understood how to bring something to market. But around 2018 was when I started whiteboarding everything out. The biggest thing that I found at that point was, God, this could go in so many different directions. And if it's not done right, I'm going to face plant. And being an entrepreneur my entire life, uh, married with two kids, at that point, I didn't have any more lives left. If I was a cat, my wife was like, "This is your ninth live. Figure it out." So instead of going all in and just jumping directly into it, I just started studying literally everything I could in Bitcoin in every direction. Who are the influencers, Bitcoin warriors out there? What are some of the best companies? Like, what is the community? That's the biggest thing we're trying to do, is capture the community in these cards, but then also studying the trading card industry and really understanding that. So I felt really confident in 2020, like I was ready to go. But then we all know what happened in 2020, so that set me back quite a bit. But around that time, I think it was like late 2019, I started my first Bitcoin business, which was called the Bitcoin Life Raft. And basically, this was just a Bitcoin advisor startup that I did. And I would go out and I would
I can
speak.
relate to that.
Yeah, it's very important. And I mean, it was really cool because I was able to get two things out of it. One, I was able to stack some sats and make a little bit of money. My wife told me, "You talk about Bitcoin 24/7. Why don't you find a way to at least start making some money now?" Cool. That's a good idea. So I literally made some business cards and would pass them out to friends and family. And I'd go to Bitcoin meetups and everything, and Bitcoin only. So that, I think, really helped because all the meetups that I would go to, they were very cryptocurrency, NFT focused, and I would come in and really be that maxi in the group. And it started working really well because there was a lot of older people that were like, I don't want the noise. I'm not interested in buying JPEGs. I want to know more about this Bitcoin. But when I reach out, I'm getting noise from every direction about everything else. So it worked really well because I was able to basically, I had a nice little black book that I would fill up all the time with every meeting I had on what intrigued people about Bitcoin, what didn't they like, different topics that I would bring up to try to see like what got them fired up and what made them not come back. And all of these things were put into my ideas for Bitcoin trading cards so that it could truly be an orange pill in a pack, not just my own thoughts on what I think people would like, but really going out and working with hundreds of people and getting all of their feedback and putting all of that into the creation of these cards.
Man, I can relate to that so much as someone who had a very similar trajectory, talking to everyone about Bitcoin, trying to get them set up myself to actually going and working at Sovereign and taking this company, we've spent the last 9 months figuring out what does work, what doesn't work, drawing on our own experiences and just refining that, honing it, figuring out what people do want to hear, don't want to hear, all of that stuff. And you brought up something. I'm just going to take a little tangent here. I talked about this in Prague in a speech I gave, that those first couple years after you find Bitcoin, you understand it, the bright orange light punches you in the face. You think you know everything about Bitcoin. You think you're going to save the world, and you're so gung ho, and it's cool. It's great. I love to see it. But I cannot stress enough, and I'm sure it sounds like you can back me up based on your experience, to just chill out for a couple years and study the ecosystem, get to know people, grow your own understanding, keep the hours piling up and learning before you go out. I was at a big corporation and I went out and tried to pitch my company on it, but I didn't, like the roots hadn't taken hold yet. Like they weren't far enough in the soil. And I didn't really sell it the way I needed to. I wasn't listening for what people wanted to hear. I had some bad ideas about how to incorporate it into our company that probably wouldn't have ended up great. And so I just wanted to take a little sidebar and mention that because so many of us get the Bitcoin fervor, and it's like, stick with the theme of Bitcoin, the low time preference, build your resolve, build your understanding, and start building the foundation. You're not going to build the foundation right away. Make it a strong foundation, get it solid, and go from there. So, sorry, I just wanted to go on that aside a little bit. I do think it's something important, and I hear it a lot from Bitcoiners, and it resonates with me. And I think it's just a good message for people out there that may be just sort of getting their feet wet in Bitcoin and wanting to change the world right away. So back to then you deciding you started storyboarding this stuff you said. So who does all the artwork? Do you do all the artwork? Do you do drawings? Do you do computer stuff? What's the whole process of actually creating the art?
Yeah, so I start with just a pencil sketch myself. I was very ambitious in the beginning and thought that I could make all the artwork for it. Um, that was obviously the craziest thought that I'd had because once I started getting in, I'm a perfectionist, so there was no way that was ever going to happen. So I consider myself the architect. Um, I will conceptualize the art, and I'll write a story behind the concept that I'm going for in this art so that I have the real deep feeling for it. And I'm sure if you've ever collected Marvel cards or X-Men or anything like that, usually it's one standard art style, and that's it across the board, which can be really fun. But at the same time, for me, I know that everyone has a different idea of what their favorite art is. So getting to work with different artists from around the world that I would just try to build relationships with. I'd find them whether it was on Upwork or Instagram. I would just literally go search on social media for different art styles and just reach out to the artists and get the conversation started. And some of them worked out amazing. They still work for me today, and now they're actually full-time employees. And some of them, it was like a one-off. The art was cool, but we didn't quite click as creators. But yeah, it's all just me at this point coming up with the concept, doing a basic rough sketch, and then passing that off to an artist that not only is skilled but has the style I'm looking for. As you can see behind me, some of the artwork is more realistic, some is very cartoon. I love different styles of art. So the cool thing is the artists I work with, they all kind of have their own particular style. And when I'm creating the idea, I already have it in my mind what I want this to look like. So I will literally pinpoint it to the specific artist with their style that fits. But last little note on that, I work with artists from around the world because US artists, yeah, they're amazing. But one, they're insanely expensive, out of my budget for the most part. And two, we have it really good here and really easy. And that's a wonderful thing. I love the US. I would never want to live anywhere else. But these artists that I work with from Argentina and Venezuela and Indonesia and different places around the world that I've been able to really build some amazing friendships with, they are living what we as Bitcoiners talk about all the time: the hyperinflation, the major pain points. I mean, we have it rough here in some ways, but compared to the majority of the world, we're living in pure paradise. And when it comes to art, you really need to have the passion, the feeling, the emotion that goes into that artwork. And we're creating cards that push the envelope of tyranny and freedom and the importance of all these really integral things to our lives. You want that artist to pour that passion into it. And yes, I'm sure there are a good handful of artists in the US that can do that. But at the same time, they're probably far beyond my price range, where these artists, they're living it, they got it. And what I'm able to pay them is life changing. Literally, like putting their brothers and sisters through school and paying off their parents' houses. So it's been a major win-win in both ways, and I definitely couldn't do this without the artists that I've became really good friends with over time.
That's awesome. We have actually a team member of Sovereign that lives and works, runs a restaurant down in Argentina. My uncle's from Argentina. His whole family's there. So a lot of exposure to that firsthand. And it is funny how much faster those folks understand Bitcoin, understand the value of hard money. And to your point, getting debased at 8% seems like a luxury compared to the rest of the world. And that's getting debased at 8% is so insane and criminal, and yet it's still better than anywhere else. It's just absolutely wild. So, along those lines, getting to sort of the aspect of Bitcoin in your business and how you've done it. Talk a little bit about how you're using Bitcoin in your business, and then also back to what you were talking about with the artists. And do you feel like you get better art out of folks that are able to spend more time because they're saving in Bitcoin as opposed to some depreciating currency? Don't let me put words in your mouth if that's not true or just some fantasy idea I have in my head. Just tell me I haven't really seen that. That's fine. But I'm just curious as to if you've noticed any of that and how you're utilizing it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would say when it comes to the artists, I mean, I've been at this for almost 4 years with a lot of these artists, and some of them, ones we have working full time for me now, we have great relationships and we go far beyond the business. We talk about life and family and everything else. I think there's a big disconnect with, I would say, a good amount of Bitcoiners. I don't know enough to say exactly how many, but um, for example, when you have someone that is living in Argentina that's dealing with the debasement the way that they are, and how big of a difference it is between our money and their money. Of course, I've talked them up many times all the way from the beginning. Let me tip you in Bitcoin, and some of them have let me, but then I ask them a year later, I'm like, "How's that Bitcoin doing?" They're like, "Oh, I sold it." And at first, I was like, "What do you mean you sold it?" And he's like, "Well, yeah, dude. It was $50 or $100 in Bitcoin or whatever it was, and I didn't sell it because it was going up in value, and I sold it because like it was literally enough money to pay off my mom's rent for the whole entire month or 2 months or whatever it might be, depending on what country they're in." So we can build up different parts of the world, but for them stacking, if they're already in poverty, I mean, $10 in Bitcoin could be a massive amount for them. Think about it this way: like in Indonesia, an average paycheck is like $300 a month if you're doing decent US. So if you hand someone like $300 in Bitcoin and you tell them to hodl it, you hope that they do, but there's a good chance they're going to need that. That could literally be uh, a life changing situation in some ways for them. It's like, how much does it? One of my artists, Sam, his sister was getting married, and it was like the whole entire wedding was like $300, and that was a pretty decent wedding down there. Yeah,
I need to
family,
get married there. Jeez.
right? So these are the kind of things that I think about, and I've learned a lot when it comes to other countries and trying to get people to live on the Bitcoin standard. Uh, they can't. manage a 20% downturn because they're already dealing with a 20% downturn sometimes monthly. So then add Bitcoin to that. Now it's a 40% downturn. That's far beyond what they can handle. So until you're building them up enough to the point where they actually have a savings beyond the Bitcoin, um, I think it's very hopeful of us to. I know a lot of Bitcoiners will probably not agree with me on this, but I do deal with people from around the world, and I think we have a lack of understanding of what poverty really looks like and how
No,
much $100 can truly make a massive impact in a lot of people's lives.
no doubt about it. And it's exacerbated by the fact that they're already living very short term. And so for them, they're taking a paycheck and they're like, I need to spend it before the week's up. And that to your point, if you can pay 3 months of rent, that's really long term time frame. In when your mindset is on a weekly basis, that's 12 times as long. So it's like it has lowered their time preference, but the time preference is just so high that even lowering it down seems 3 months to us seems like nothing. So yeah, I I agree with you. There's a lot of this out in the Bitcoin community where it's changing Africa or we're saving this continent, and the reality is it's like no, this is another medium of exchange, and people have immediate needs. And at the end of the day, store of value is simply something you save into the future to exchange later. And it's just a lot of these places they need to exchange now. And you're not, it sounds fanciful and it sounds great. And it's wonderful to think that this could be some way for them to get out of poverty. But at the end of the day, when you're in poverty, it potentially even putting aside 5-10% of whatever you're earning is just not even possible. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's like I've lived in a little shack in town that has no running water, no flushing toilets, and no power 50% of the time. And now I finally have a little bit of money. Do I keep that in Bitcoin or do I kind of move up and get an apartment that has running water, that has a flushing toilet, and actually has power? I think the comfort of that is probably far more important. I mean, any Bitcoiner today in the US at least, give them that. You can save up for Bitcoin, but you're going to crap in the woods, or you can start saving Bitcoin later, but for right now, you can at least have a flushing toilet and water in your house. So it's these comforts that we think. I mean, here in the U.S., it's standard, but in most countries, depending on where you're at in those countries, it's not. So that saving, like, what's more important? And once you have a family, it's even more so. And you're trying to explain to the kids, well, we could afford to have running water and have these comforts, but daddy's saving in Bitcoin right now so that 5 years from now, we can have power 24/7 on top of the running water and flushing toilets. And so I think we just have a major disconnect in the US. When it comes to what the rest of the world can do. At
sure. Well,
least,
why do Bitcoiners save in Bitcoin? It's so that we can buy a house to raise our family and to eat better food, and we're all looking to improve our lives with increased purchasing power, and we're just starting at such a high level here in the first world. Although I live in Chicago, and sometimes it looks more like the third world, but that's a different conversation. But we're just trying to get that next level of comfort, security for our families, for us, and they're just taking advantage of it while they can. And ultimately, that's the point of having more purchasing powers to be able to afford those things for yourself and better your life. And if you hodl forever, you could live homeless your whole life and die with 5 Bitcoin. Great, okay, you were a trillionaire in the year 2067, but what do you have to show for it? So,
yeah, yeah. You step
yeah,
through your kid's childhood, and now they're grown up and they're out of the house, and you've got enough Bitcoin to help them all out, but they're going to look back and go, "Well, Daddy, I really just wanted your time."
yeah, that's right. Right. So, all right, well, we got a little philosophical there. So, back to the nuts and bolts of the business. So you guys, I assume, are accepting payment in Bitcoin.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, we definitely have tried to stack every little bit we can as we go. I mean, we've been working with Shopify, so Bitcoin payments on there has been difficult. So we've moved through a bunch of different uh, Bitcoin exchanges to be able to make that work.
Well, if you would like some professional help on that, we're available. Happy
We're
to
working with Zeus
expertise.
Wallet now,
Oh,
so
good. Okay, good.
and they're great, wonderful team.
Yeah.
It's just Shopify is a very difficult one. I mean, and they just partnered with Coinbase, I think, which we definitely won't be doing that. But yeah, it's very fiat. Shopify is, so figuring that out has been a big one. But when it comes to like how we integrate Bitcoin, one of the big things we've always wanted to do was put in Bitcoin rewards. We did do Bitcoin rewards where instead of getting a percentage off on the website, we would just give you a kickback in Bitcoin. We were using Jolts. So the Jolts team is an amazing company, especially when it comes to rewards. So you could spend $50 and get anywhere from 5% or so back in Bitcoin. And then you can't hold it on our site. It would be there until you're ready to exchange, but then you have to exchange it into your own wallet. So that was working really good, and it was a lot of fun. I'm trying to do Bitcoin affiliates so that if you're using our affiliate link, you can get the kickback of whatever someone used your link for. Your kickback would come back in Bitcoin. So that's a really big one as well. Um, Putting Bitcoin rewards in the pack is definitely something that is going to be coming in the next set. And we're going to go really hard on this. The only reason we didn't do it before is it's got to be done like to the T, where there can't be any oopses, any issues. When you come out and you say there's a Bitcoin in this set, you better be able to verify in every single way there's a Bitcoin in that set. And you better make it to where someone can't cheat the code, because that can get really, really expensive really quick. So with the next set, we've got it dialed into the point where we can finally start doing this, where you could basically pull a card out of the pack and potentially have an entire Bitcoin on that card. But that Bitcoin wallet, where that Bitcoin sits, the public address will literally be public to the entire world. So if you want to verify, oh, well, they say there's a Bitcoin in there. I mean, there's other competitors, or at least one other competitor out there right now that is putting crypto rewards inside the packs, but they won't tell you how much. They won't tell you any details. They just say there is. So, me as a Bitcoiner, don't trust verify. That doesn't work for me one little bit. So, you'll be able to actually jump on the internet and look at the public address and be able to see, look, the Bitcoin sits in this address. And when someone redeems it, they better be smart, because I will literally, it's a whole Bitcoin. I'll take a personal phone call or even fly out in person to give them the Bitcoin talk if I have to. You're withdrawing that off that address and putting it into a hardware wallet. So that'll be really good for the collectors to be able to see as well, because once it's moved, then they know it's been redeemed. So
So have you found most of your customers are Bitcoiners or are not Bitcoiners?
I'd say right now it's 60-40, 60%
Interesting.
40% not. Yeah.
Wow, I would not have guessed that. I would have guessed it was a much higher percentage of Bitcoin, but that's pretty cool. That's awesome. So, it, has there been a situation where we talked to a lot of these businesses, ourself included, where if we didn't have Bitcoin in the business, like we probably wouldn't have made it. I'm just curious if you have any, or just sometimes you just sleep better at night knowing, hey, we're good. We have a lot more of a reserve. We're not just living day to day, hand to mouth, paycheck to paycheck here. We actually have some reserve and some comfort. And then also curious if you've orange pilled any vendors or anything along the way.
Yeah, two great questions. Definitely having Bitcoin on the balance sheet is huge. I think this is going to be a must for all businesses at some point. Um, it's unlike
It's
anything.
already a must. It's just
It's a must.
how quickly do you figure it out?
100%. Um, yeah, it's massive. Obviously, it hurts during the downturns, because the last thing you want to do, even if you need the fiat for the business, is pull it out. But in the long run, it's 100% the way to go. But I do think It just depends on the stage you're at in your company. If you're a startup, it's a really difficult one to lock yourself into. We can't touch this because startups, I mean, you need to be throwing everything at it. Uh, Unless you have very, very big backing of fiat or your company doesn't cost anything and you still have a fiat mining job that you're doing. When you're all in on a startup, you got to be all in on a startup. So I recommend people at least look into giving yourself the ability to say, yes, stacking my reserve is very important, but what's more important, my Bitcoin reserve or my business that should outpace Bitcoin in one way or another? So that's been a wall we've hit a few times of last thing we want to do is sell any of this Bitcoin right now to cover things. But even some very, very wise investors I've talked to, and we have not taken any investments in the company. It's all still 100% self funded. But we've had the investors say it because we've had the conversation. Like, if you're not willing to spend your Bitcoin to help grow your company, why would I invest in your company? Because why would I invest in your company versus just buying Bitcoin?
Just buying the
You don't
Bitcoin.
think your company can outrun Bitcoin? And is that a crazy thing to say? Oh, my company is going to outrun Bitcoin. Yeah, that's absolutely crazy. But at the same time, if you don't think it can, and you're dumping shit tons of money into your company, well, maybe you should just go get a fiat mining job and try to balance your books the best you can and just buy as much Bitcoin as you can. So there is that balance as Bitcoiners we have to try and find. And I'm sure a lot of people it comes off really cocky. Well, I have to outdo Bitcoin. I literally have to outpace Bitcoin with my profits in order to make this work. But it's true. Otherwise, we should all just be stacking as many sats as we can and not dumping money into the business.
Well, I mean, I think at the end of the day, if you need to be profitable in sats, and that's the thing. Because as long as your stack is growing, in theory, you are then having Bitcoin's performance, but you're increasing your Bitcoin stack, and that's the idea we really try to get across to the businesses that we're talking to, is that you need to be positive sats flow, and that's ultimately how you grow your Bitcoin, and then that's how you get more, and then getting more Bitcoin is outperforming Bitcoin because you're
Yes.
adding to your stack. So
So yeah,
I just yeah.
let me clarify on what I was saying.
Yeah.
If you're a startup, it's completely different than established business.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. 100% true. And yeah, if you're just going to watch your company die so you can hold a Bitcoin on your balance sheet instead of actually making a business become profitable, then yes, there is. Then you should just go buy buy the Bitcoin if you're an investor for sure. So, okay. The other question: have you orange pilled any vendors?
We have. We are working with some massive vendors. Now, how far has this gone? We are definitely in a big process of making that work because they are really big businesses. I've tried to get them lined up because they're big enough, I think, for a Michael Saylor talk. So I would love to eventually make that happen. And I do believe Michael would jump on this one because it's a big enough company for him to take his time and do this. But these are the type of things that I'm definitely working towards is making some big splashes here, hopefully within the next year or so. And it'll definitely be newsworthy once we pull this off. But they're seeing it. And I think that one of the things we can kind of get into in a little bit here is the correlation between trading cards and Bitcoin. And like, I knew that there were some, but once I got in and I opened up this door, my mind is blown on just how correlated Bitcoin is to trading cards. It's mind blowing.
So along those lines, that first of all, that's awesome. I love. I mean, that's such a huge part of us trying to onboard, educate businesses. Is the second you onboard and educate a business, everyone that they touch, the spider web just grows, and it's like eventually you will touch everyone, and that's just a to your point. That it's just a first step. Okay, something's wrong, something's up. I'm dealing with a Bitcoin trading card company. They're offering to pay me in Bitcoin. Like these are just all touch points that eventually will get this person across the finish line. And we're just starting with that. So I actually dealt with one of the last deals I was working on in my former fiat life was a company that printed trading cards for Tops, and it quite the process in terms of quality control, making sure they were doing the printing, the security. I mean, I don't know if anyone's seen the documentary about the Monopoly game at McDonald's and the scam, but basically, if you don't have controls over the production process, you can corrupt the process and direct these tickets to family members, mafia buddies, whatever you want to do. So talk to us a little bit about the production process, the quality control. I know a big part of what you advertise on the website is the scarcity and the guarantee. Obviously, as Bitcoiners, we always have to ask how, if there's not a ledger that we can publicly audit, how do we know it's going to be scarce? So walk us through that process a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, with trading cards, you're only as strong as your printer. So, as a company, you can promise anything and everything, but if your printer isn't literally matching you on your fundamentals, then you have no control at that point. And I said that I think that would be the same for any company creating something that is valuable because of the scarcity. So, number one is using the best printer in the world, and we are blessed to be working with uh, number one trading card printer in the entire world. There's no better company, and they've been around, I believe, close to 100 years. So they
Definitely
definitely,
not the deal I was working.
yeah. And their security measures are insane. I mean, all the way to the point where when I go visit the plant, I'm only allowed in a couple doors and I can't even go beyond that. I'm like, well, I'd love to see my cards. And they're like, we can't. We literally cannot take you in there. And the security is, uh, it's all of what a casino is in Las Vegas, if not higher. So there's no dead zones in the whole entire place. In order to even have an employee walk in the door, they have to go through and they're wearing a set of clothes that have no pockets. And when they leave, they're coming into a room where they have to go through a process in order to prove that they have no phones, they have no cameras, they have nothing, and they have nothing in their pockets. They can't walk out with a printing plate or anything. And it goes all the way to the end of production, where once the cards are done, they're going and literally a locked, like, it's chain link, but it's chain link to the ceiling all the way around with giant padlock on it, and these cards are untouchable. And that's just for my cards, let alone the other ones. So you got to work with the best, again, because you can only promise to a certain point. Once it's out of your hands, you can't touch it. I know there's a lot of people in the Bitcoin space that have heard about us that ask the question, well, how do we know you are printing these cards this way and that way? We don't print the cards. There's literally a machine that is half the size of a football field, literally one machine, half the size of a football field in order to put these cards out. We are plebs. This is nowhere near a massive company in any way. We just grind. I'll say it like probably very few people in the world, the way that we grind when it comes to just putting in the work, the time, the dedication, and everything to pull it off to maybe make it look like we're a big company. We're just honestly really, really hard workers. And at the end of the day, it is the printers that is our number one relationship, number one um, partner in order to make this work. So the trust that goes into that, again, you just have to go to the best. And then when it comes to knockoffs and people trying to make fakes and everything, we've went above and beyond to literally create our own what we call a fingerprint stamp. So it's basically such a highly detailed foil stamp that it's like recreating fingerprint, which we know is impossible. So with this, it's stamped on the back of every one of our chase cards. And it's you cannot reproduce it unless you literally break into the vault at the printing place, and you have to know which printing site it's even being printed at. You've got to get into the building, into the vault, find the right box that it's sitting in, the lockbox, and then somehow get out of there. And I highly doubt these cards, especially right now, are worth anywhere near enough for someone to go through that kind of work. So even though we don't have to put this stamp on because the quality of craftsmanship we put into these cards no one's going to knock this off unless they literally have a multi-million-dollar printing press. We still go above and beyond to make sure this is something that even in the future, like, you're not knocking it off. The only way is if my printer were to knock them off themselves. And with their clients, the last thing in the entire world they would ever do is anything like that. And they've got 100 years of proven track record to show that.
Yeah, that's what I found was that the company that actually I was dealing with, they actually got switched to by Tops because whoever was printing for Tops couldn't deliver for them, and these guys did deliver for them. And so, just a just another fascinating industry, just things you don't even think about that. But once you actually get in there, start going through all the processes and everything, you're just like, holy cow! It's just that little rectangle piece of paper with so much went into this, and it's like the life of a pencil or whatever. The life of a baseball card is like 10 lives of pencils and or not baseball, just trading cards in general. So that's pretty cool. And so are those the are like, if you can say, are those the folks potentially interested in learning more, or someone else
Yes,
along the way? Or okay, all right. Oh man, that would be awesome.
it
So
would be awesome.
yeah,
It would
wonderful.
definitely be a feather I would be incredibly happy to put in my cap.
That's awesome. So you got into this for the education aspect of it, getting into people's hands. I'm still shocked that so many non-Bitcoiners kind of get these cards. That's really cool. What would you say is sort of the I don't want to say percentage, but the what's the kind of marketplace that's come up around this, and how much of that is driving demand for your cards as opposed to more just collectors and art appreciators?
So I think that kind of just brings us into the correlation between Bitcoin and trading cards topic. Um, so our first transactions, not all of us, but I'd say good majority of people that I've talked to, our first transactions are on the playground trading, whether it be marbles or we had pogs when we were kids. There's
So many pogs.
different collectibles that have come and gone, but the
Massive shitcoin.
yes, the one collectible that always stuck around though for literally over, I think it's been 150 years now, that trading cards have been around and being traded at school, being traded by young children on the playground. Uh, that's one of the biggest correlations that started really getting me thinking about the educational side. You're trying to teach people about, I mean, Bitcoin, but in order for someone to understand Bitcoin, they got to understand basic economics. They got to understand basic monetary theory. And that word sounds so complicated, but you can make it really simple. And the youngest children that have a little bit going in their head, I would say maybe 6 or 7 years old even, can start to pick that up. And that's literally them going on the playground and going, why is this card more valuable than that card? And why am I asking for two of those cards for one of these cards? These are the things that really get kids to start thinking about money, is through these trading cards. So collectible values, all these different kind of things. But then I started going deeper into the junk wax era. And for anyone that doesn't know what the junk wax era is, it's the late 90s or late 80s into the early 90s where the trading card industry was booming. And instead of them trying to find a way to make this work in a proper way, keeping scarcity, keeping some true values inside the trading card industry, they did the exact opposite. And they started printing hundreds of millions of packs of trading cards monthly. And the scarcity was gone overnight. You had a lot of people that have been collecting for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, three generations, and everything that they'd collected and held on to and penny sleeved and top loaded and put into a box and saved under their bed or paid for a storage unit, all these extra things they went through to save these investments that they had were destroyed overnight. Well, doesn't that sound a lot like our money? So these kind of things started kind of putting together, and then I'm going, okay, well, the trading card industry, all these collectors, all these people, they've if they've been around for a while, they've been through it already. They've been through the mass inflation of trading cards, And now we're in this new paradigm of trading cards that is way bigger than the junk wax era. You could times it by 10, you could maybe times it by 100. Pokemon printed somewhere around 11 billion trading cards in 2024. So these trading card companies, they have access to a printing press. And I mean, they're printing money. It's in trading card form, but they're printing money. So a lot of people just don't understand this. This is why you can't get a lot of people off of fiat and over to Bitcoin. So we're trying to combine through what we're doing here the ability to teach people where they're at. And I think that's one of the missing points that a lot of Bitcoiners, especially today, they're missing that you can't just go out there and try to hit someone with high level Bitcoin education and information right out the gate. You're going to run them off. You're going to do the exact opposite of bringing them into Bitcoin. You're going to scare them away forever, and then most likely they're going to go buy XRP. And then they'll never come back to cryptocurrency because they will relate that to Bitcoin. And we know, well, we have a really good idea of what's going to happen there. So it's meeting people where they're at, and where is the biggest group of people right now that are, again, call it the lowest hanging fruit or the highest on the pyramid to understand Bitcoin. Is it people that are into economics in college and finance? Those are honestly the last people that are going to get it, because they are brainwashed to a level that is just unprecedented. I worked in an office complex over the last few years, and almost everyone in there were financial advisors. I had them open packs of trading cards. I wish I could have filmed it. They're going, Bretton Woods, what is this? Like, literally, they don't know the story of Bretton Woods. They do not know anything about the creature from Jekyll Island. They know none of these topics. And I'm like, people actually give you their life savings and have you direct it? Holy crap. So they are so anti-Bitcoin because all they've been taught is like total Keynesian. So there is no way that they're just going to come in freely and openly. Their cognitive dissonance is to the moon. But who would be that next level person that would be easiest, that category that could come to Bitcoin faster than anybody else? It's collectors. I mean, whether they're trading card collectors or Funko Pop or whatever that collectible is, that's the one, because they are dealing with the mass inflation like no other industry right now, other than what fiat is doing to the world. They enjoy collectibles. They want scarcity. They want finite supply. They just don't even know it's possible. Just like we did with the money that we've been holding and earning throughout our entire life until Bitcoin showed up and offered them that. I didn't even know it would ever even be possible. And that's why I went so nuts on Bitcoin when I found it. So basically, we are trying to be the Bitcoin, what Bitcoin is to the monetary system, we are trying to be to the collectible industry.
So that's interesting. Oh, by the way, I can confirm that people working in finance and big corporate offices have absolutely no idea about the monetary system. It's even worse in banking, where you're the epicenter of the monetary system. Almost nobody knows how banking actually works. But that's an aside. So help me understand this a little, because growing up, it was always like, okay, the Honus Wagner rookie card. That was sort of the at the time the gold standard, now the Bitcoin standard of trading cards. And it was because it was so scarce that there were so few made, there were so few left. And so you could have individual cards, trading cards that were scarce. So how would sort of the influx, and by the way, I remember 1990 was like the worst trading cards ever assembled. They like thought they could put a piece of a gum that was about as hard as a table into the pack, and you would just accept it. But 1990 Donruss, 1990 Pops score some of the worst cards ever assembled. So how did that giant influx of these other cards sort of affect the price of these more scarce cards that still held their scarcity? They didn't make any more of those. Was it just disillusionment, or how did that?
So a lot of it's reprint. So obviously Babe Ruth and Mickey Mantle cards. I mean, they are what they are, the originals, right? But we're coming into, or we're already in a new era of collectors. So what gives these cards value in the first place? An individual that really wants that card and is willing to pay X amount, period. It's the only thing that gives it value. So as we have this new generation growing up and they're looking at an original Mickey Mantle, unless it's literally in a PSA graded slab and it's almost in perfect shape, they don't want a crusty old card. Some of them will, but that segment is getting smaller and smaller. So, what are their options? Because they want a Mickey Mantle, they want a Babe Ruth. Well, Topps and Panini started printing new Mickey Mantles and new Babe Ruths, and guess what? The artwork on these is 100x what the original cards were, and they're crispy, and they're PSA 10s, and they're foil stamped with some cold foil in there, and all these embellishments. And if you look at Babe Ruth's bat, you can literally see the wood grain in the bat as you turn it. So now you just took 50% of the people potentially that wanted an original Babe Ruth to go, well, yeah, I wanted that. This card looks so much better. I'm not worried about even collecting one of those anymore. I'll go after the new Babe Ruth.
I got you. Okay, so it was the existing collectors that were there sort of for what's going on now, the new upcoming stuff that may have bought a pack, bought a box, bought an individual card, and now all of a sudden there's 10x whatever they had got, and those were the ones. Okay, I got what you're saying. So that's interesting though. I didn't know that dynamic that there's sort of a phasing out of these old cards, which brings up even more to your point that it's more about the artwork, it's more about the collection than really the scarcity. The scarcity is one aspect of it, but there's this whole other sort of aesthetic aspect to it that intrigues a lot of people.
Yeah, well, most people don't even know the definition of scarcity, sadly. So I've asked hundreds, if not thousands, of people to collect trading cards over the last few years I've been doing this. Um, what cards are you into? Pokemon. All right. How many packs do Pokemon print on average? I have no idea. And like I'll go to a trading card show and they've got their big glass case and I'm looking at a Bo Jackson and it's PSA graded and I've got a buddy, his name is Bo Jackson, so I love collecting them and I grew up Bo Jackson era and he's one of my favorites. So I'm like, that Bo Jackson right there, I think I want that one. Do you know how many of those exist? And they're like, no. Like, you have
Who
no idea
cares?
how many of those. They're like, well, you can look on PSA and see how many have been graded, but I have no idea how many of those exist. I'm like, well, do you know how many different variations of Bo Jackson cards were created? No idea. I'm like, okay, so you literally sell these for a living. You travel from trade show to trade show selling trading cards, but you've never thought to look into scarcity and the production of these cards. So this is what we're working with, and this is like the financial sector. All right, well, you literally manage people's money for a living. So what do you know about money? Oh, nothing. So there's a lot to teach at this stage. And back to your, is it the aesthetics? Yeah, 90% of it is. It's like, look at cars nowadays. If you tried to work on a car that's been built in the last probably 5, 10, 15 years even, you can't. Most cars you can't even change the oil. Like, it has to go into a shop, it has to be plugged into a computer to be touched. It's all getting automated out of our hands. So as this is happening, we have to be realistic. And that's the best advice that I can give anyone that's starting a business or running a business now, that you're preparing for the AI future of everything that's coming. Get realistic. One of the best quotes I ever got was from a painter, because I used to be in the classic car industry, and he painted all kinds of some really, really big people's cars. And he says, adapt or die. At the end of the day, adapt or die. You want to get stuck in your ways? You can, and you can die on that hill. But probably going to die on that hill. So,
Man, well, Aladdin, this has been fascinating. I honestly did not expect the conversation to go this way. I kind of thought I I'm sure all the questions you get from Bitcoiners, how do you verify, how do you prove the scarcity? And it's interesting that that's just a substrate of really this whole other industry that I guess I've been out of for so long that I don't even know. I'm just ignorant as to the customers of this industry, and there's a whole separate demand group out there that is looking for something totally different than I was for as a kid, and that's pretty cool. And it sounds like you are certainly filling that niche, and that's awesome. So I guess, kind of the last question I ask people is plans for the future. Are you guys looking to grow? Are you looking to scale down? Do you want to hand this over to someone in 2 years? Where do you see things going with you and your business here in the near, sort of medium and long term?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think the big one, just on the last thing you said too, to kind of branch off into this final question, is what people need to get into Bitcoin is a touch point. And most people, the technical side is their first excuse. It's too technical. I can't do it. And you're like, well, I can't manage social media. I get on there and I'm like, I don't even know what to do. I hardly know how to open a post when my wife sends it. Obviously, the basics I do, but if someone sends me into I do this, I'm lost. But majority of people, they can do anything and everything on social media, and that's all tech. So the excuse of it's too techy, I don't understand. It's literally just an excuse to not get started. Excuse me. So what we need to create as Bitcoiners are these first touch points. How do you invest in Bitcoin when you know nothing about Bitcoin and you're scared of Bitcoin? You have no idea where to get started. You have no idea what to do, and you don't want to open a wallet and get into the technical side. Well, you know what? You can buy a pack of Bitcoin trading cards. And not only are you holding a Bitcoin collectible with a finite supply, first in trading card history to come out and do a verifiable finite supply, first trading card in history to be 100% transparent, first trading card project in history to provide true scarcity. We're not printing by the millions, hundreds of millions, anything like that. So all of the fundamentals of Bitcoin are built into these cards. And guess what? You don't need to open your phone unless you're going to pay with your phone to buy a pack, but you literally can hold, and that's what, well, I can't hold it in my hand. Okay, put it in your hand. You can now hold a piece of Bitcoin history in your hand with all the fundamentals of Bitcoin, and you're incentivized now to read the card. Well, what's the card going to teach me about Bitcoin? Well, if I'm not learning it, then you might just learn by being a collector because you're going to start to understand scarcity, transparency. What is finite supply? What does that even mean? So that first touch point, I think, is incredibly important. Now to the next big stage of where can we take this? We've actually changed the name of the company. So we are no longer Bitcoin Trading Cards.
Uh-oh. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, we did
Well, I
enough.
apologize.
No, no, you're fine. It hasn't been. Our community knows, and we've made little announcements here and there, but we're building up on a little campaign to put it out there. We're still BTC. So what I learned going to these different conferences and trade shows that are not Bitcoin, that are strictly trading cards, new people see the word Bitcoin and they're like, they'll pass us up. But once I get them in and they start understanding these things I was just talking about, I've kind of got them. So how do I get them in without scaring them away before that happens? So we've changed the name to based trading cards because our topics are based, and you don't have to be based to get Bitcoin, but it definitely helps. So this is where our transition is. We still create the Bitcoin trading cards. It is now a product instead of the name of the company. So this will
Got it.
definitely help us get to the general public in a lot easier way. So based trading cards produces Bitcoin trading cards, and it's still BTC, which is really, really important, our acronym. So what's next is we will continue to produce one set a year of Bitcoin trading cards. It's 21,000 packs, which is a blip compared to any set in the entire world of trading cards. Finite supply, original art, all the best of the best, once a year. But now the big direction we're moving beyond this, called the Lamborghini of trading cards, um, is called Satoshi's Heroes. And Satoshi's Heroes is 21 different universes where we are building out these universes to tell the story of money and the story of the importance of freedom Again, why Bitcoin? And it really is not going to be like what we have now, where you have the amazing art, and then on the back, you get a nice breakdown, a couple paragraphs with a really cool quote that kind of teaches you the ethos of Bitcoin. This is more Marvel Comics meets Bitcoin. So it's telling a very graphic Marvel Comics style action story about these different universes, and each universe will have its own unique artwork. Anything from Viking universe to cypherpunk to the first one that's coming out is ancient Japan. And there's literally a 200-page novel that will be coming out first. It'll tell the story about this universe. Example, Volume 1, Ancient Japan, a 200-page novel, really popular with the kids right now. And this novel goes deep. And the first novel actually, as much as it talks about Bitcoin, very little. It is more focused on the disarmament of the people, because the moment the people are disarmed, uh, a lot of
We all know
things,
what happened.
we all know what happens. So it's really teaching a lot of based subjects and topics, but in a very creative, sci-fi, fictional, fun story that anybody can kind of get into without being pushed this Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin narrative. But little do they know, they're learning quite a bit about why Bitcoin is important. And then the trading card set that comes along with this will be the largest print we've ever done, and we're pushing towards the big box stores. So we're trying to, I mean, it would be great, but to be the first Bitcoin that is a Bitcoin company that is able to take Bitcoin education to the masses, to the mainstream in a way that right now no other company could, because we could show up at a concert, we could show up almost anywhere. We're bringing the fun in every way, and fun is welcome just about anywhere. So that's my biggest recommendation for anyone else that's building in the space. Make it fun. Don't be stuffy. You're only going to get so far. If it's Bitcoiners, well, I mean, we kind of enjoy that, I think, but outside the Bitcoin space, you got to make it fun.
There's a lot of people that, and monetary policy and understanding it is a very serious issue and has arguably led to the most death and destruction of anything in the history of the world, fiat money. But you do have to have some fun. You got to be lighthearted about it. If you take yourself too serious, you're going to end up like some of the people you hate on Twitter, and no one wants to be that. And I found too that you're just more relatable. People, if you comport yourself as super serious all the time, no one wants to talk to you. Right? No one, if even if you're talking about Bitcoin, if even if you're speaking 100% truth, if you're not relatable, if you're some stiff, like think about all the people that your former life, whatever world you came from, you're like, oh, that guy's a stiff. Oh, he's a stuffy suit. No one wants to be around him. No one, even if the guy was smart, even if he was good at his job, or gal, uh, no one wanted to talk to them because they were obnoxious and boring and took themselves way too seriously. And if you do that, you're going to lose a lot of people right there. So I couldn't agree more. That's why I try to crack some witty jokes and stuff like that. Not all of them are tense, but what are you gonna do? So you got to have a little fun. And I was, as you were saying, with the cards and base trading cards versus Bitcoin trading cards. It's almost like you're putting together the sly roundabout way for the orange pill. So
It's the
I
Trojan
love it.
horse. That's how we get
Yeah.
there. And we already
Yeah.
were trying to be that, but with Bitcoin in the name, we're like, hey, we're a Trojan horse. So with base trading cards, it'll be a lot easier to get that across.
Awesome. Always good to sneak some Hayek in at the end. So, Aladdin, thank you so much for your time. This conversation was 10 times more enlightening than I thought it was going to be. I really appreciate your time and walking me all through this, and definitely something brought back a lot of nostalgia and memories from my past for sure. So that's always a fun road to go down as well. So thank you so much for your time. And where can people check out the trading cards? Where can they find you? Where do you want to send people if they want to learn more?
Yeah, so right now, still Bitcoin trading cards is where we're branded just about everywhere, because we're doing the transition. So if you look up Bitcoin trading cards, you're going to find us, or BTCTC. The website is btc-cards.com. We're most active on Twitter right now, And yeah, check out what we're doing. Big point to make, if you're going to go on the website and look into the cards, we have something called Genesis packs. They're $3 a pack, and those are specifically for orange pilling. There's no big collectability. I mean, compared to the trading card industry, they're still massively collectible. But for someone that's looking for foil, fun, chase cards, they're not in there. This is more what you give your waiter, what you give your kids, $3 to potentially orange pill somebody. And then everything else is highly collectible, extremely scarce. And last little point, um, when it comes to Bitcoiners, you did ask the question earlier, why buy Bitcoin trading cards versus stacking sats? That's a very important question. And I can tell you our whole community and the company, literally since first weekend, our slogan to Bitcoiners is stack sats before packs. If you don't
Nice.
have the sats to spare, you don't need these. You need Bitcoin for sure. Go Bitcoin first. But as an orange pill tool, the $3 packs, they're great. They're probably not going to take too many sats away from you to do something like that, but use it as a tool for friends and family. They're great stocking stuffers, things like that. But if you don't have your Bitcoin stacking already in a way that you want it to, stack more sats. They're great tools for certain things. Collect one at a Bitcoin conference. That's great because literally 10 years later you can go, look, check it out, son. I was at that conference. You could only get one of these Pacific Bitcoin 23 cards if you were actually at that conference. So things like that I think is really, really cool. But buying them as a collectible investment, let's leave that to the normies for the most part right now. Unless you've got extra sats, I'm happy to take them. That'll go into the company and it'll go towards the mission of what we're doing for sure. But
Well, I think that's such an important point is that, listen, people, Bitcoiners a lot of times have this idea that, oh, we can never spend money or hoard till I die. And we talked about that a little bit, but people like things. People have things that bring them joy in life. I have a painting on my wall because I like the painting. Some people like cars just because they enjoy driving the car. They want a nice BMW, not because it's some status symbol, but because they enjoy driving the car and the way it feels. And so there's just certain things people like, and if you have the opportunity to enjoy those things, some people like trading cards, some people like collectibles. And so to your point, do this as a hobby, don't do this as your retirement fund, and act accordingly. So everyone should view life that way. There's nothing wrong with enjoying yourself every now and again. The meme of laying on the floor and the uh,
selling your chairs.
yeah, so on your chairs is not like, to me that's a miserable existence. I would much rather have a chair. So I'm
Yep.
gonna keep that chair. But anyways, enough of the philosophical soapbox here. Aladdin, thanks again. It's been great talking to you, and have a good one.
Yeah. Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate it.
All right.
Cheers.